Okay, I would like to thank you for being present in such large numbers and thereby showing interest in the topics labor migration and labor rights. I would like to welcome you to our session. My name is Dennis Smolders, lecturer at the PXL University College in Hasselt, Belgium, and host of this session. Europe is facing demographic changes with a rapidly aging population and low birth rates. Pensioners are expected to account for about 1/3 of the EU population by 2050. This will have significant social and economic consequences, including increased demand for healthcare and social services, lower productivity, and higher public expenditures. To help address these challenges, the European Union has been encouraging legal migration to tackle labor shortages, fill skill gaps, and boost economic growth. But labor migration has always existed and is therefore timeless. If we take the case of Belgium, we think of the so-called guest workers that came to work in the mining industry after the Second World War, as mentioned earlier today by Professor Dirk Geldof. But since the beginning of the 21st century, there has been a new wave of labor migration, primarily from within the European Union itself. The expansion of the European Union led to employees, mainly from Eastern Europe, coming to work in other European countries. In some sectors, so-called posted workers form an important group. We say a worker is a posted worker when he is employed in one member state but sent by his employer on a temporary basis to carry out his work in another member state. To give just one telling example, in the Belgian construction sector, posted workers amount to almost 40% of total employment, and a rather new phenomenon is that more than 20% of these posted workers are third country nationals, meaning people with a nationality from outside the EU. As already said, labor market shortage is a big problem in the whole of the EU and will only become bigger, which increases the need to recruit employees outside Europe. This raises questions as how are we going to do this? What choices do we make as a society? Of course, the answers to these questions have implications relevant to social work. Among others, we think about human trafficking, housing issues, ethical recruitment, and not in the least, abuse because of foreign workers' lack of knowledge about their labor rights. Today, we want to focus on this vulnerability. To do this, we have a panel of 4 speakers, each involved in the topic, but from a different perspective and expertise. I am therefore very pleased to introduce you to Stefaan Peirsman of ACV-CSC Trade Union, who is Migration and Diversity Coordinator at the largest trade union in Belgium. He will therefore adopt the trade union perspective. Jan Knockaert, Coordinator of Fairwork Belgium. Fairwork Belgium wants to improve the working situation of employees with precarious residence rights or no right of residence at all. Paula Caballero, community worker from SAAMO Brussels. She will present a pilot project focused on undocumented people living and working in Brussels. Mohamed Ariche of CEPAIM Foundation in Spain. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it in person today, so we will dial him in instead. In his role of Advocacy and Alliances Officer, he focuses on in-depth policy analysis in the field of human rights to inform and shape advocacy strategies. He also establishes and nurtures strategic alliances with crucial stakeholders, including the United Nations, national, European, and international advocacy networks. Each speaker will present the case or project from his or her own practice. After each presentation, you, the audience, is invited to ask questions and formulate remarks. And now I give the floor to our first speaker, Stefaan Peirsman.
Good morning, midday. I will start with a case that went as a shock through Belgium, but also through Europe, and is been spoken of as the biggest finding of social fraud in Belgium, at least, and some say in Europe. So I will introduce the case of Borealis. I don't know. That's a that's a plastic plant in Antwerp. They are still building a new factory. In the summer of 22, the inspection, I was at that time on holiday and I got a telephone from the television station. Do you know something? I couldn't answer, but because the only thing I knew was from the news. But the social inspection entered the building because they heard some rumors that there were some social fraud, bad paying of workers. They entered the site. They found like hundreds and hundreds of people who were abused, not being paid well, not all treated as bad as the one and the other. The worst group were the Philippines and the Bangladeshi. There were about 150 together. They were not registered. They came in Europe through Hungarian single permit visa. Then they were transferred to Antwerp. They were not, normally you should be registered. They were not registered. They were very bad paid, a couple of €100. Some of them had sold their houses in Bangladesh to make the trip to Antwerp or to Europe to come working, so they were abused. Then there were the same with 80 Turkish workers, pipe fitters, same story, being bad paid, bad housed, and then 300 Ukrainians. They were more or less a bit better paid, but still victim of social fraud. Belgium government was at that moment direct. They recognized in a few days 170 victims of human trafficking, but then and then also the Flemish government said, okay, there are so many fraud here. We withdraw all the visa. So all the workers with a visa, they lost their job from one day to the other. The capacity of the human trafficking center in Antwerp, which is very small, had only capacity to take care of 50 people. So the other people recognized, but could not get treated. They were living in their houses, were not being paid, so they were helped by NGOs who brought their food and who helped them through this very difficult time. And this was not for a short period, this was for months. They got harassed by the landlords they were living in, that they had to leave. So it was a terrible case. It was Progress Lawyers Network who was doing it, and then we as trade unions, we stepped in, and together with Progress Lawyers, we took up the case, and now we are civil parties. So the most of the people eventually, they all found a new employer thanks to the trade unions, thanks to Progress Lawyers Network. So good. That was a bit the case. So then the campaign started with PAL and the unions. And also the Belgian government and Flemish government were shocked. So there were a lot of proposals. Since then we have been lobbying for 2 years now. What came out of it? So we say a protected worker is an informed worker. So what we demand is before people ask for a visa to come to Belgium, to come to Flanders, that they receive what is working and living in Belgium. Now they just ask for the visa, they get the visa, they leave and they don't know about anything, and they arrive and their only source of knowledge of the labor market is their employer. So that's too less. So what we want before they leave, that they get information when they go and get their visa in the consulate or embassy, that they get a leaflet or something upon arrival when they go and inscribe in the community, that they get a leaflet and information where how they can find a home, if not the employer did so already. Some of these things we could succeed, some are still in negotiation. Also, Flanders decided to build 5 centers in the provincial capitals, in Bruges, Antwerp, Ghent, Hasselt, to give information to labor migrants, but we think it's more or less addressed to expats and not to other, like bakeries and people working in the building sites. And so it's starting now, so I think we really have to see how it will develop, and that these centers will also reach all workers here. Then what we found out was the housing problem. I mean, even if they are paid correctly, almost always workers are bad housed by their employer, and not because it's not always the employer who chooses a bad house, but there are no houses. I mean, people living in poverty, newcomers, I mean, all these low budget houses, I mean, they're all taken, they're all quite expensive. So we really have to look in the very near future, because we're going to need more labor migration, is a lot of housing. I think we're even going to have to build houses. To give an example, in Antwerp, they're building the Oosterweelverbinding. They're going to need like 3,000 labor migrants there. Where are they going to house them? I mean, if not, I mean, there will be a house somewhere, but in which condition? They're also going to a new factory in Antwerp, also 2,000 new workers. Where are they going to put them? So we really need to think about how we're going to house all these labor migrants that will come in the next 20, 30 years, and it rises every year. So it's not from maybe they're going to come, no, they're going to come, and we really have to think on the housing problem, and not only for the labor migrants, but for all people who need housing today and living in bad condition. Then the cost of migration, I mean, should be always addressed to the employer. What we see today is that people are renting, borrowing money from family, from banks to come to Europe. Then the boss promises that he will pay it back. He won't do it. He won't pay it back. We see a lot of problems. There is an ILO convention who says from the labor migration, that the migration traject should always be paid by the employer. But we don't see any proper legislation here in Flanders, and not only in Flanders, not only in Belgium, it's all over Europe. There's no legislation put in that the employer has to pay the trip or the training beforehand or whatever. So we really demand, and really in legislation, that the migration trip is being paid by the employer. And it also protects the employer, because it's an expensive worker that's coming to here, and the employer has to pay quite a lot of money, so he will probably better take care when he has to pay a bit more than a worker here in Belgium. Then another big problem is the recruiting. We don't know who recruits in the sending countries. I mean, this really should be regulated. This probably will be the most difficult, because there are foreign companies. But I think there should be legislation possible that recruiting agencies who are recruiting for the Belgian market or for other countries, that they're known by the country, and that they are recognized by the country for who they're working for. Then maybe a last one. Change of work. I mean, that's what we see. So when the government finds social fraud in in an enterprise when it's not working with the employer and he gets fired. Whatever, when he loses his job, he only has 3 months to change, to find a new job. But mostly he's living in the house from the employer, so he has to find a new house, he has to find a new employer, and this employer also have to go through the whole process of asking for the new single permit visa. So it takes a lot of time. So 3 months is not enough. We ask for a year. We could negotiate with the federal government that we could get 180 days, but then it didn't get voted. So we still, at this moment, it's in legislation but not voted. So we still have these 3 months, but there really needs to happen something there. I think my 10 minutes are more or less, or a bit more. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Stefaan? Or remarks?
Yes, thank you. What I see daily in my job is what happens before the social inspection. There has to be a lot before the social inspection comes to a factory to inspect. Also the fines that employees receive for social fraud or something else, I think it's too less. Also the dependency about the employer, and I'll see a lot of labor migration, intra-European migration, where there are some factories, I think these in Ghent, the slaughters and all this, it's terrible. They also within Europe get with the free, if you want to have paper in Belgium and you're from Bulgaria, you need to have a job. So they do everything to have this paper. What do you think about that? Because that's 2 questions. What before the social inspection? Because a lot of people are too scared to make an announcement. And what about the European labor migration?
I didn't talk about the mobility workers. I mean, the people who travel within Europe. I think that's a gigantic problem. Only in Flanders, about 200,000 European workers are working here in low-paid factories. A lot of times in very bad paid. I think we have to increase our lobby for more inspections. I mean, in this legislation, more inspections are being hired, but it's terrible. I think on community level can be done a lot, and not so much on the working conditions, but where they live and there they can find, and then they can they know where these migrant workers are living. Go to there, call the inspection, but I know they're very afraid for these people to stay working here. But I think they should not be afraid to call, and also we have to ask ourselves how can we get this information more directly to the workers. I mean, and I think that's a good thing about this third country nationals coming to here. I mean, a good thing, it's better because they have a Belgian contract and they come working here, and we know where they have to register. So we have. It's going to be difficult as well, but for European workers, it's a problem. It's a gigantic problem. I mean, it's not always bad, but in a lot of times I've button, and I think more inspections. I think also unions can do something if there are unions that they see these people working there, they see the bad conditions. So I mean, that's a bit talking to my own organization from. They should register. The people working there, our militants, our shopkeepers, should come to us and give a sign. Sometimes it happens that they give a sign from this is an impossible. But I think we have to address it. We have to keep on addressing this problem because we know, and it's a big problem, and it's a European problem, because you can't do anything on legislation. It's regulated. People come from, I mean, most are posted, so they pay social security in their, it's being paid in their home country. They're coming here. They're cheap labor. It's not regulated, and that's there's the directive of the free movement, and and the European community recognize these problems, but it's not addressing these problems, and I think as a union, as a community, we have to see and go to the inspection and try to solve it, but it's not going to be solved in over a day.
Okay. Yeah. I think
Yeah, there I am. Hello, everybody. Thanks for the invitation. So I'm Jan from Fairwork, Belgium, working on labor rights of undocumented migrant workers, primarily, but also on people with precarious status. I'm going to try to split up my 10 minutes, my very short 10 minutes, to talk about the subject I can for the whole day about. So I have to do this in 10 minutes. First of all, on labor migration. So all of us, we always hear we need more labor migrants. If you look at the regulation of labor migration, it's very clear what the regulation wants. It wants hands and it wants brains. It's very annoyed about the fact that it's a person linked to the hands and those brains. We want the hands and the brains. We don't think about the housing. We don't inform them about their labor rights. It's unclear who has to pay the cost of labor migration. And if they are exploited, the first thing that we do is take away their resident status. So they become undocumented or only have 90 days without almost non-accompanied assistance to find a new job, which means they become undocumented. Labor migration is constructed on we need workforce, we need hands, we need brains. It's not on what does the labor migrant want. A labor migrant has a labor migration project. He leaves his country, he or she leaves his country of origin to come and create a job, to earn money, to maybe install himself for the future in Belgium or in Europe, or turn back to his country of origin, or send money back to the country of origin. But it is not taken into account in the legislation. And the legislation wants them to work, and once they're not working anymore, they're not producing anymore, then we forget about them. So if very often they say we have a war for talent, we want more talent, but I don't have the impression that we really want the person that brings the talent. And only if we do this paradigm shift in which we put the labor migrant in the center of the policy, we're going to get a good labor migration. A labor migrant who is informed, and when he gets in trouble, can, first of all, knows that he's in trouble. Very often people aren't aware what are the minimum wages. They aren't aware about how much holidays they get and so on, or what is the compensation for working more hours. So as Stefaan already said, information is key. That's the first thing you have to do. An informed migrant, a labor migrant, is a labor migrant who can claim his rights, knows where he can claim his rights. And as also already mentioned by Stefaan, if somebody files a complaint, he should know that he's protected. Protected in the sense that he will be able to continue his labor migration project. That's his goal. That's why he left his country. That's why he left his family and everything he knew. If he feels that if he files a complaint that this labor migration project will maybe not continue because he risks to lose his job and lose his resident status, he will not file a complaint. He will accept abuse very often for a very long time. So that's the legal migration subject. We also work on undocumented migrants, and that's something I'm going to repeat 3 times, because if I say it once, people think they didn't hear it correctly. Undocumented migrants have labor rights. They don't have the right to work, but from the moment they work, they have labor rights. That means they have right on a minimum pay, the Belgian minimum pay, not the wage that the employer promised. If they have a labor accident, the labor accident insurance should cover it, even if you're undocumented, even if you're working undeclared. So all labor rights apply. So again, if you're undocumented, so you don't have papers in Belgium, and you are working, even if there is no written contract, it's only an oral agreement, even if there is no paychecks, but the moment they have an employer, so the moment they have somebody who says, you can come now, I want you to come to my house, to my office, to my building site, and I'll tell you what you have to do on this building site and this work. And I tell you how much I'm going to pay you. And I decide if you do your job well or not. Then I have a labor relationship. From that moment, labor rights apply. This means you can claim your minimum wages. So if you work undeclared, if you work undocumented, you have labor rights. Hope everybody got that. What does that mean in practice? For example, we have had an undocumented migrant worker who was working in a depot in a warehouse. Thank you. Didn't want to come. Who was working in a warehouse. He was working there for a few years. He filed a complaint himself with the labor inspection. Very important, he filed a complaint with the labor inspection. The labor inspections, if you file a complaint yourself in Belgium, they will never, ever contact the Office of Foreigners. For the fact you're undocumented, there is no consequence. If you're controlled on the work floor, then it changes. If you're controlled on the work floor, the labor inspections is obliged to contact the police, and the police will contact the Office of Foreigner, and then you have the whole risk. But if yourself, as an undocumented migrant, go to the labor, not the police, to be very clear, the labor inspection, you will not get in trouble on your residence. You will not get an order to leave the country. The Office of Foreigners will not even be aware about the fact that you filed a complaint. So it's completely safe to do that in Belgium. You file a complaint with the labor inspection. The labor inspection did, in this case, try to do their job, didn't find enough proof. This undocumented migrant himself, without any assistance, looked for a lawyer and went through the court. Also there, no problem for him to do this. He went to the court, but he lost the case. Then he found out that we existed and contacted us. We built up the case with the proof that he had. It was quite hard because it was already a few years later. And in appeal, we won the case. We won a case of an undocumented migrant working undeclared for a company in Belgium, and the salary that the company had to pay was 35,000 euros of back pay that he had to pay to an undocumented migrant. The employer was very surprised about this, and he went into higher appeal. What did the undocumented migrant do with our assistant? He seized the building of the employer. So the employer couldn't sell his building to block the 35,000 euros. So an undocumented migrant led seizing the building of his Belgian employer. At the end, we won the case. The employer paid 35,000 euros, and the undocumented migrant was still undocumented in Belgium, but received 35,000 euros in his bank account. He had a bank account, completely other story, problems to get a bank account for undocumented migrants, but there I don't have the time for. And I completely agree with your question. The fines that you get as a worker, as an employer of undocumented migrants, or of exploiting even legal migrants, labor migrants, are not high enough. But if you force them to pay the salary and the social contribution that they should have paid immediately, then we come to completely different amounts. Now we have a case of an employer where he was working with, I think, 10 different people. They calculated salaries and from the years past and the social security that this employer has to pay. The court case has to start, but they are claiming 7 million euros of back pay and social security of this employer. The fine would not have been 100,000 euros. So if you claim labor rights, wages, you punish employers, and you will maybe also incentivize our society, look, we need these workers, that is now done by undocumented migrants. We need these workers. Let's create a legal pathway through labor migration in which they can really come and work on a legal way, that they don't need to be undocumented and work. Because we have 241 shortage occupations in Flanders. Only 20 of them, 20, 21? No, 30, yeah, I knew it wasn't 20 anymore. 30 jobs of the shortest occupation are open for labor migration. So we have 241 jobs where we need people, but for labor migration, it's only open for 30. That's part of the problem. The jobs that are done by the undocumented migrants, they cannot achieve to come to Belgium in a legal way to do these jobs. So we have to change our policy on labor migration. We have to make sure that our labor migration policy is labor right proof, which means an informed worker that doesn't have to carry the cost, that can file a complaint without risking his labor migration project, that gets decent housing. And in these conditions, you can create a labor migration process where employers that are honest employers can hire people on an honest way, and that prevents people to have to work in an undeclared position. Okay. Any questions?
Perfecte minute. Perfecte minute.
This is a social work conference. Jan, can you tell us about the awareness of social workers on this issue in Flanders?
Yeah, I think that the fact that undocumented migrant workers or labor migrants have rights is something, certainly undocumented migrants have labor rights is still very unknown. I think that's a problem. I really hope that this helps fueling the information and the social work in Flanders. But also, actually, this is European legislation. Eh? The sanction directive, it's called, sanctioning the employers, has a clause that says all undocumented migrants working in Europe have the same labor rights as their colleague on the work floor. So that's European legislation. I think we did a lot of work in Belgium to apply it, and it's pretty okay applied. Other European countries, it's still a challenge. We can talk about that later. I think for the social worker, it's this information aspect. Inform undocumented migrants or labor migrants that they have labor rights. Inform them that there is, for undocumented migrants, no risk in filing a complaint with the right instances, not the police, but the labor inspection. And for labor migrants, where there is a risk to lose their residence status if they file a complaint, there I think it is more a process in, okay, you have a problem, it's negotiation, join the labor union. If there is a labor union in this company, maybe they can negotiate to solve the problem. If that's not the case, then we can look for, if you file a complaint, what is your profession? Can you already look for another employer who wants to hire you with a single permit? But that's more challenging, because before you can file a complaint, you have to look out, will in the 90 days I have, will I find a new employer? And that's, of course, very challenging.
Yeah, but I just want to share that you have also Fairwork in other countries.
Yeah, but yeah.
My question is different. You said if an undocumented worker contacts the social inspection, police will not be contacted. But what about other undocumented workers at that same workplace? Are they safe, or are they very much in danger of being contacted by police and then losing all their benefits or statuses?
Well, if they're undocumented, they will not lose benefits because they don't have that. But it's clear that they're in trouble. What's the trouble there? How we challenge that, if an undocumented migrant comes to our office and wants to file a complaint with the labor inspection, we will assist them to file the complaint and do the whole process. If we hear from this undocumented migrant that there are other people working there as undocumented, we will ask them to contact them and ask them to come to us also. So they can build a case, make it bigger, make it stronger. To be honest, a labor inspection lost a case with a lot of workers, a lot more than one worker in a small company. The more workers they have in a big company, the more impact that they can have. If there is a control on the work floor and they find workers after a complaint, there is no guarantee for these workers. And this is part of the current problem we still have. We really need also for undocumented migrants, if they are controlled on the work floor and they tell their story of exploitation, they should get the guarantee that they will not be locked up in a closed center. And that's something that at this point we don't have yet. We do have an agreement with the Office of Foreigners in Belgium. If there is a control on the work floor, asked by one of our employers and our employers, one of the workers that contacted us, if this worker is there, the police will still be contacted, but we get the guarantee that they will be not locked up in a closed center and will not be turned back to the country of origin. It's not a good deal, because they still get an order to leave the country within 30 days. But we know that a lot of undocumented migrants have a lot of orders to leave the country of 30 days. So some of them don't really care that they get another one and prefer the control. A lot of them decide, I don't want this control, then I will just file a complaint. So that's a problem, that's a challenge, absolutely. So there was one comment on from the public that said there are other Fairworks. There is Fairwork in the Netherlands with the same name. We stole their name, don't tell anybody. But you have other organizations working on labor rights in other countries in Europe. For example, you could check the site of PECUM, P-E-C-U-M, pecum.org, and there you will find other organizations working on undocumented migrants also on labor. There was here a question, yeah.
Final two questions, maybe.
I had two questions, but one is already asked, so that's good. As a social workers, we get people with migration background, document and undocumented, but I find it when we ask them to go to unions that they are not helped because they always ask for proof. Because without proof you cannot negotiate. Yeah, bemiddelen. Ik weet niet how do you say it in English.
Yeah.
So how can I help my clients with that issue?
But that's a question I have to answer.
I'm going to first make it more difficult and then you can answer. For the proof, go to our website, fairworkbelgium.be. There you can have a search engine where you can click proof in Dutch. I don't know if it works in English. Test it and let me know. It's also an English site, so it should also work. And then you will see all what can be used as proof. It goes about videos, how do you register conversations, all those elements. It's always better to be a member of the labor union than not, but it is also what we perceive, before Stefaan answers, that the threshold is very high. Language is a barrier, and very often not all trade unions are organized to solve the language barrier. You have to be a member often for they give assistance. So we do see that a lot of challenges there for the labor union confronted now with a more diverse workforce, with precarious status and undocumented migrants. But let's now Stefaan answer.
No, but it's true. It's I don't know if you're Belgium or not Belgium. It's a challenge to find help with the labor union. I get quite often, I think weekly, 1 or 2 questions from migrants from how I can get affiliated, and I think, yeah, slowly they find me, and if they come to me, I can direct them to the right person to help them. And I said they're not affiliated. He or she is willing to get affiliated. Becoming a member of the trade union, can you help them? Because that's not all, because we say we also can give you legal advice after 6 months membership. So I asked them, can you help them directly? Like all the Borealis, they were not, of course, not members of the trade union, but we are civil party for them. We are in court. We'll protect them but that's also a big problem. Then you go to court, and then you have to wait 2, 3, 4 years before. But I think we're open for other ways to support migrant workers. But you can't. It's maybe a search to find the right people within the union. to get the right support. That's, I have to admit. But still, that's a growing process because we're getting encountered more and more with cases of migrant workers being not treated well by their employer.
Okay, thank you. Then we give the floor to our speaker at home. Yes, Adam? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me from Spain to this session. I apologize first for not being able to be with you in person, but I hope to have opportunity to do so next time. My name is Adam Mohamed, and I represent CEPAIM Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to fostering coexistence and social inclusion of migrants in Spain. With my presentation, I will try to give you a general overview of labor migration in Spain, hoping it proves insightful for you. As you know, Spain has become a significant destination for labor migration within the European context. I myself, an immigrant from Morocco, and we know also that the economic contribution of migrant workers are undeniable, yet they face many challenges that affect not only their welfare, but also their ability to integrate fully into society. I will try to first give an insight about the origin of migration in Spain. Spain labor market has been significantly shaped by migration from North Africa, South America, and Eastern Europe. These regions represent the largest shares of our migrant workforce. And the sectors that employ migrants are agriculture, that employs a large number of migrants, particularly in regions like Andalusia and Murcia in the south of Spain. And in 2020, about 30% of the agricultural workforce in this area consists of migrant workers, primarily from Morocco and Romania. Construction and hospitality in the urban tourist-heavy areas such as Madrid, Barcelona, and Costa del Sol, there are more than 25% workers in the construction. Most of them are from Eastern Europe and South America. And domestic service and personal care in major cities like Madrid and Catalonia, Barcelona, account more than 40% of workforce. So the distribution of migrant labor in Spain varies markedly between the industrial north and agricultural south. What are the challenges and obstacles for immigrant workers in Spain? First, labor challenges, precarity and temporary contracts. A significant issue facing migrants are the disproportionality affected by temporary contracts, with notable lack of job security and stability. For instance, while 17% of Spanish nationals are on temporary contracts, this rate rises to 27% for non-national immigrants. The second issue is the wage disparities. Migrant workers often experience significant wage disparities compared to native workers, which is a major factor contributing to economic inequality and social exclusion, with studies indicating that the wage gap can range from 20% to 50%, depending on factors such as occupation, education level, and length of residency. There is also another issue, is the overqualification. Migrant workers frequently find themselves in positions that do not match their qualification. This overqualification affects a large portion of the migrant, leading to underemployment and frustration. and is a waste of valuable human capital. For example, between 50% and 77% of immigrants with higher education are employed in jobs that require lower qualifications, compared to only 20% of similarly educated Spaniards. That means 1 of every 2 migrants is suffering from overqualification effects and waste his useful knowledge and skills. Also, we have problems with access to services like healthcare accessibility. Migrant has, for example, problems related to language barriers and lack of familiarity with the healthcare system, the Spanish healthcare system. And we did a study called MCA. The study highlights that economic and administrative problems, along with the lack of understanding of healthcare system, are significant obstacle for migrants. Housing inequality also. Housing conditions for migrants are often a very big problem. We have like studies that's shared by our colleagues from other organizations, that's more than 48% of homeless population is from foreign origin. And also, the last one is the social integration. We have a discrimination frequently related to race and exclusion, racism, sorry. So that affect also mental health and physical health of most migrants. There is another more issues, but let's talk about our solutions, our advocacy. We are advocating for ratification of international conventions. We strongly recommend the government of Spain and also international and also more others European countries to ratify the International Convention on the protection of the rights of all migrants, workers, and members of their families. This ratification will solidify the legal framework necessary to protect the rights of migrant workers. Enhance labor inspections. We advocate for a stronger labor inspection regime to enforce compliance with existing labor laws and to fight the exploitation and discrimination that migrant workers often face in workplace. We have to enhance also information system and employment agency to better align the skills of migrant workers with job opportunities. We propose to develop a sophisticated information system through employment agencies. Also, training opportunities. Increasing training opportunities is crucial. We must ensure that migrant workers have access to programs that enhance their skills and qualifications, allowing them to contribute effectively to the economy. Access to public employment, for example. We propose that our national employment system includes migrant workers proportionally in the public sector, promoting their full integration into labor market. We recommend also simplifying the regulatory framework for employing migrants. This includes reducing the administrative burdens and streamlining and optimizing the process of recognizing foreign qualifications. Related to healthcare, we advocate for universal healthcare model. Provide free and universal access to all residents, specifically designed to meet the unique needs of migrants. We want also involve training healthcare providers like doctors and nurses in cultural sensitivity and human rights to enhance the quality of care for migrant community. And the last recommendation is social inclusion. We want a social service law. We support the introduction of a comprehensive social service law. This law aims to be a fundamental element of the welfare state, ensuring and broadening and providing universal access to essential social services with better coordination and coverage. This initiative, rooted in our study and so many studies we did, like MCA study, aim to build a more inclusive society when migrant workers are recognized as valuable members, fully integrated in our society. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Adam. Are there questions for Adam?
I have one otherwise. Hi, Adam. In Spain, there is also a situation of if you're undocumented, but you have an employer, that you could get resident status, if I'm not mistaken. Could you explain a bit if that's true what I'm saying and how that works?
Yes. In Spain, that's called arraigo laboral. That's when it's we have so many modalities, but arraigo laboral is targeted at immigrants who have been in Spain for 2 years and can demonstrate that they can demonstrate that they have been employed for at least 6 months. But they can be 6 months and not consecutively. It's not necessary to be consecutive, but in general, 6 months for 30 hours. And 1 year if it's less than 30 hours. This path acknowledge the contribution for migrants in Spain. So the eligibility must be like to prove that they with a contract and also don't have records, for example. There is so many conditions, but we want enforce and enhance this labor regularization called arraigo laboral. Is there another question?
Yeah, there's another question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you a question. It's more of an observation. You were talking a lot about the economic points of migration. And to me, it seems like you're reducing them to their economic value to Europe. And I don't know if you might want to comment on that.
Yeah, it's not only as myself as a migrant. I always try to give this view that we are useful to society, and we give help to improve the economy of the country that invites us. But I agree that we have to also speak that it's a human right, not also an economical issue, but it's a we are as a human being have the right to travel, to live abroad in other countries, and to start our project of life and everywhere we want. It's our right as a human being. So I totally agree. I agree with you.
Any more questions for Adam? Yeah. Okay, one last question.
Hello, I have a question on migrant women, because in Spain, especially in the informal sector of caring for the older people, well, most of the informal carers are undocumented women, mostly from South America. So my question is how we can support them in enforcing their rights, because sometimes they work in-house, so that means that they are practically working 24/7, with no information on what are their rights. Some of them are like afraid to go to the police or to go to even like other spaces to uphold their rights. So yeah, that's CEPAIM work in this with this segment of the population, and what are your initiatives and experiences?
Yes, it's a very important subject. We are, especially now, we are in a moment doing some conversations with the government, because we are trying to influence a new law about this subject. So Spanish government is very open to regulate more this issue. So they, as an organization of civil society, we did a contribution and for a law about this subject, and we hope very soon. But we have now some political issue in Spain, so everything is now blocked. But we are trying. After this, the clarification of the situation, political situation in Spain, to progress with this new law related to women, to care, women who works in the care and assistance services. But we are very aware about this subject, and in CEPAIM we have so many services to help and to register any violation of their rights. So they have also their own organizations that represent this collective group, and they are very active with all civil society. So we are very aware of this subject, and we hope to progress on this new law.
Mike, yeah. I just also wanted to answer to your question, because women working in care and houses is not something that only happens in Spain. Actually, we as Fairwork Belgium also have a part of our organization working on this issue with a specific project in Brussels, but now also starting in Antwerp and in Liège, where we try to bring those people together, undocumented migrant women, or even with papers, who are working in these services to elderly people, childcare, or just a domestic worker in-house living or not in-house. So it's also an issue here that we see grow and grow, because elderly people don't want to go to the elderly houses anymore. The family wants to work, men and women, but there is no childcare, or they don't trust the childcare, so they want a nanny. They call it an au pair. So we see a lot of exploitation also there. So we try to bring them together with social activities in first instances, and then when they are there, we start informing them. We of course do the social activity, but also inform them on their labor rights and try to incentivize them to claim their labor rights. But I do have to say that this is very hard to convince them to act, a lot harder than a construction worker that contacts us. So it's still a challenge for us.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Adam. Then we move over to our final speaker.
Yeah, thank you. I prefer to stay if you don't mind. Yeah, thank you.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm working in SAAMO, Brussel. In SAAMO, we work for the access to basic human rights for the most vulnerable people. And we do that through experimentation, innovation, participation, and political work or political lobby. So we have projects in housing rights, caring and powerful neighborhoods, and also social protections. Social protections with people on living wage, but also for people without documents, people with no residence permit in Belgium. So We have been working at SAAMO for years with undocumented people and have been able to develop an understanding of their main problems that are, a lot. Without documents, they have almost, or not all the rights they should have, or at least they cannot use them. And the access to formal work, the non-access to formal work leaves them in a very precarious situation, and this is one of the problems we want to strategically address to improve their situation. So maybe you heard already in another panel, in Belgium, there's a whole population of more than 120,000 people living with no residence permit, who are like in a gray zone with some rights, not all rights. Yeah, we are in a very difficult situation, and who are suffering in the most cases under exploitation. They're earning very little, like €3 per hour, or they really struggle to survive. At the same time, in the Belgian labor market, we are facing with a labor shortage, a very big shortage of working force. But current migration policies do not allow undocumented migrants to work legally in Belgium, despite these needs of the labor market. So to address both the needs of undocumented people, to find a way, and also to address the labor market needs, we are starting with, we are creating a cooperative called Talent Coop. This is a project I want to explain to you. So in SAAMO, we try to develop innovative models, like other ways of dealing with social problems. And through these models, we want to show the society, but also to the political level, that other ways of doing things or dealing with problems are possible. So our model, Talent Coop, aims to address the critical social needs of undocumented people while offering an innovative approach to integrating those people to the labor market. We aim to provide an opportunity for undocumented individuals to realize their fundamental rights in terms of employment and social integration. But as I said, also address the structural need of the labor market by filling vacancies in key sectors such as healthcare. We start little, so we will first launch a limited 5-year pilot project to experiment with the possibility of employing a limited number of people without residence permit, from 3 to, at the end, 27 people, in certain functions in the healthcare and welfare sector. We are establishing this cooperative that will act as an employer and will manage salary-related aspects within an interim relationship with partner companies. By developing a model that can be replicated afterwards and working on raising public and political awareness, Talent Coop, this project, aims to have a lasting impact on Brussels and also beyond the Brussels regional capital region, on the economical, social, and political level. So on the economic level, the goal is to have the model recognized as an effective solution both for the integration of undocumented migrants into the labor market and also for resolving the labor shortage crisis in professions in demand in Belgium. On a social level, we want to combat the exploitation in the informal market, promote social and economic integration for undocumented individuals by providing training and job opportunities. At the political level, we want to position the right to work for people without residence permit on the political debate, and make Talent Coop a model and a credible alternative for migration policy. So, we offer an innovative approach to integrating this population and thereby addressing the shortages. So we create a kind of living lab to be able to address the problems and to demonstrate the viability and reproducibility. And we conduct the political work, the lobby work through this practice. The active participation of beneficiaries of our group of people who will participate in the project is really at the heart of the project, really in its operation and development. We implement and support a model to strengthen the participants' capacity to be involved in all stages of the project as ambassadors and experts through experience. Those people who will participate will also have the opportunity to be part of the cooperative's board of directors and participate in the decision-making, ensuring that their voices are heard and considered in all the strategic directions that we are going to take. So the most important thing to launch this project, because actually we don't have the legal framework to do that. So we need a well-defined derogation, a legal exception that from the competent ministers in the Brussels capital region and especially in the federal level. We want to ask the authorities for a renewable work and residence permit for the participating individuals in our project so that they can work, contribute to social security, and benefit from social rights related to work. Well, this is a very summarized version of our project. If you have some questions, I can deep in some of the aspects. Are there any questions? Otherwise, maybe
yes,
we can.
Yes,
yeah, sorry.
I have two questions. First, so as long as you don't get that permit from the regional ministers of Brussels, you will not be able to pay salaries to those people. And secondly, when undocumented migrants are willing to start a new project with their life, one of the things they tell us is we can't get in Flanders in the volwassen onderwijs. How do you translate that?
Education system.
Adult education. It's blocked in Flanders since many years by Parliament. So wouldn't it be also nice to reopen it, because that gives possibilities to undocumented migrants to increase their competencies for living here or wherever in the future?
Yes, indeed, we absolutely need the derogation at the political level to be able to start the project. So we are already, the cooperative is already there. We already created it. But in order to, as you said, to start engaging people, we need to have the legal allowance to do it. So we are starting with the binoms, working with the people themselves and the companies to see what are the needs of both. So if they need a convalidation of the diploma or a specific formation, or and indeed there are a lot of other things like adult education that would have to open up. Mm-hmm. The idea is to give this group of people the residence permit and show that it doesn't really make sense to make people live in this situation and the condition that they have to go back to their country to ask for the visa without being certain of it and then come back is not really very practical, thinking that we really need these people here and now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I want to go. I want to go a bit further on this because how do you think to convince the government? I think the Brussels region is quite open. And I know we negotiated an ordinance that through training by Actrice, the Public Employment Service of Brussels, you could get the right papers, but then the federal government blocked from no, never. we're going to approve this, the residence status of these people. I mean, and how do you think to convince the federal government, especially after the elections?
Yeah.
I think the climate is not very open, and I'm asking this question as a friend, as a sympathizer of your project.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's a very difficult moment. The political sphere is really not looking into this direction, and now with the elections and the migration topic being so politicized, it's even more complicated. But that's why we chose now to try to talk with the administrations instead of talking with the political parties, not knowing really who is going to be in the government in some months. Yeah, we are trying to talk with the administrations. We started at the regional level, and as you said, the region, the Brussels region, is really open because normally labor is a regional competence, and they are eager to find a solution. But yeah, the federal level blocks.
Because we tried on federal level, we tried to negotiate, and we negotiated, but eventually it was no. A very small change in getting a residence visa for people who are in the demand of asylum. And they work in a bottleneck profession, because they can work if you're in the trajectory on asking for asylum, and you're getting, you have to leave the country because you're not getting approved as a refugee. But you're working in a bottleneck profession, then you can start to ask for a single permit, and you can stay in the country working in this bottleneck profession. But even this small thing, we tried to open this discussion there. It was a no. I mean, it was a very big no. Mm. So I really wish you a lot of success. And I really would like to participate in negotiations because I'm curious, but...
You're welcome.
Okay, I think we can conclude here. I want to thank all of the speakers for their thought-provoking talks, and of course you all for the interaction, the questions, and the interesting discussion. Have a nice lunch.